Some troubleshooting, repair, and service procedures for the QSK 45 and 60 engines require specialized service tools. Although similar in function with previous KV service tools, many of these tools have been redesigned to accommodate changes made on the QSK 45 and 60 engines. Service tools used when working on the components of the engine block include lifting straps and engine lifting fixture, liner puller, liner press tool, camshaft pilot and C-clips, connecting rod piston assembly pusher. The use of some of these tools are covered in more detail in troubleshooting procedures in this section. The lifting straps and engine lifting fixture shown here are used on the QSK 45 and 60 engines rather than the change used previously on KV engines. These straps are designed to hold over 3 times the weight of the engine. Although these straps have additional lifting capacity than the previous lifting chains, they weigh considerably less. If there is any indication that the piston cooling nozzle may be misaligned, the nozzle must be replaced. Operating the engine with a misaligned piston cooling nozzle will damage the cylinder due to piston overheating. The camshaft pilot helps to align the camshaft for proper removal and installation. In addition to the pilot, C-shaped clips fit over the camshaft valve lobes to assist with camshaft removal and installation. These new tools are needed due to the increased camshaft bore diameter. Since the flywheel housing now covers the bore, the pilot tool was designed for installation and removal through the opening in the side of the block. Installation of the C-clips on the camshaft is vital to ensure that the camshaft is properly supported during removal or installation. Without the clips, or with the clips installed incorrectly, the camshaft drops as it moves through the length of the block. This could cause damage to the lobes or the bushings. The first step in camshaft removal is to remove the thrust plate cap screws. Then, bar the engine until the camshaft keyway is close to the 12 o'clock position. The C-clips install on the valve lobes opposite the lobe peak. For the QSK 45 and 60 right and left bank camshafts, install the 6 C-clips on the valve lobes, as indicated by this chart. Installing the clips will require the camshaft to be rotated slightly in one direction or another. Check the clips to ensure they are centered on the shaft. However, the camshaft should always be returned to the position with the key at 12 o'clock before pulling the camshaft. With the C-clips in place, move the camshaft forward until the rear camshaft bearing journal is in the next bore forward. This provides access to the rear of the camshaft through the rear cam follower opening. A slight back and forth rotation movement will be required to free the shaft during removal and installation. However, do not excessively rotate the camshaft as it is pulled from the engine. Excessively rotating the camshaft causes the C-clips to lock up in the camshaft bore. To insert the pilot tool, align the small dowel with the hole in the rear bore of the camshaft. Push the pilot forward until it is flush with the end of the camshaft. Tighten the nut until it is snug. This keeps the pilot in the bore as the camshaft is being removed. Steadily pull the camshaft forward until about 1/2 of the camshaft extends outside the block. Use a slight back and forth movement to free up the shaft. Using nylon slings and a hoist, support the camshaft. Apply a slight upward pressure to maintain camshaft alignment as it is removed from the bore. Continue to pull on the camshaft until it is out of the block. When the rear camshaft journal is in the next to last camshaft bore, remove the pilot from the rear of the camshaft. With the camshaft fully installed, thread the T-handle tool into the clips and use it to remove the C-clips. Complete the procedure by installing the camshaft thrust plate cap screws. Then check the injection timing. Refer to ENDS Troubleshooting and Repair in this program for additional information on this procedure. In this section, we will look at the procedure for removing pistons and liners. Refer to the service literature for complete details on these procedures. To remove the piston and liner, begin by removing the cylinder head. Remove the components to access the rod caps. This can be done through the handhole covers or by removing the oil pan. Remove the piston cooling nozzles to prevent damaging or misaligning the nozzle. Due to the piston cooling nozzle arrangement, the piston cooling nozzles for the cylinder on the opposite bank must also be removed to remove a piston from a cylinder. Bar the engine to locate the piston in the best position for removing the piston cooling nozzles. Remove the cap screw that mounts the long nozzle clip to the block at the center of the V of the engine. Remove the banjo cap screw that connects both nozzles on the outboard side of the cylinder block. Remove both sections of the dual piston cooling nozzles. Handle the piston cooling nozzles with care. If the nozzle is damaged, or if it is suspected that the nozzle may be bent, the nozzle must be replaced. Both the rod and cap must have the cylinder number marked on it. Bar the engine toward top dead center for the piston being removed to provide access and clearance for connecting rod removal. Loosen the cap screws until there is 6 millimeters of clearance between the rod cap and the cap screw head. Using a mallet, tap the connecting rod cap screws until the connecting rod cap and the rod separate. Remove the cap screws and the cap. Install the piston assembly pusher tool into the connecting rod to assist in removing the piston assembly. Push the piston and connecting rod up until the piston rings are above the cylinder liner. Remove the piston assembly pusher tool. Carefully remove the piston and rod assembly. The clearance between the rod and liner is relatively small. A liner puller is used to remove the cylinder liner from the engine block. The two-leg universal liner puller used on other Cummins engines fits the QSK 45 and 60 engines as well. However, the center bar puller requires a new, longer center bar for these engines due to the longer cylinder liner on QSK 45 and 60 engines. Install a puller in the cylinder liner and pull the liner. Refer to the service literature for liner cleaning and inspection procedures. Liner protrusion is determined by the thickness of the liner flange, sealing ring thickness, and the counterbore depth in the engine block. The sealing ring has 3 locating tabs on the inner diameter. The tabs have an interference fit to the liner lower press fit diameter to hold the sealing ring in place during liner installation. Install the sealing ring. Applying finger pressure near the tabs, position the sealing ring squarely on the bottom of the liner flange. Install the crevice seal. The beveled edge of the seal must be positioned toward the bottom of the liner. Install the black D-shaped seal ring in the middle groove with the flat side against the liner. Install the red D-shaped seal ring in the bottom groove with the flat side against the liner. Use vegetable oil to lubricate the liner rings. The liner press tool is used to install the QSK 45 and 60 cylinder liners. The press tool has been designed to accommodate the metric 7-bolt pattern of the QSK 45 and 60 cylinder head. The press will only install on 1 or 2 bolt patterns. use the tool to press the liner into the bore. With the liner press tool in place, measure the liner protrusion. If the protrusion is not correct, the liner must be removed. The protrusion can be adjusted by changing the sealing ring or machining the counterbore ledge. Refer to the service literature for the liner bore measuring procedure and specifications. Using a lint-free cloth, clean the connecting rod and the bearing shells. Install the rod bearing in the connecting rod. Make sure the tang is positioned in the slot in the rod. Position the end of the bearing even with the cap mounting surface. Lubricate the bearing surface with clean engine oil. Install the lower bearing shell in the rod cap. Make sure the tang of the bearing shell is in the slot in the cap and the end of the bearing is even with the cap mounting surface. Lubricate the connecting rod cap screws with clean engine oil. Lubricate the entire bore of the cylinder liner with clean engine oil. Lubricate the piston rings with clean engine oil until the rings are covered. Allow excess oil to drip off the piston. Rotate the rings until the ring gaps are 120 degrees apart. Make sure that none of the gaps align with the piston pin bore. Install a piston ring compressor on the piston with the tapered end toward the piston skirt. Rotate the crankshaft and position the journal for the rod being installed to provide access and clearance for connecting rod installation. Align the rod with the crankshaft journal. Install the rod and piston until the ring compressor touches the block. Hold the ring compressor firmly against the block. Use a wooden hammer handle to push the piston into the liner. Push the piston into the bore until the rod bearing contacts the crankshaft journal. Install the connecting rod cap. Install the cap screws. Tighten the connecting rod cap screws alternately and evenly to seat the cap. Torque the cap screws to specification. Check the side clearance between the connecting rods. Gently install both sections of the dual piston cooling nozzle, making sure that the longer section locating tab slides over the locating pin and is properly routed toward the adjacent cylinder. Make sure the locating pin in the short section is properly placed into the cylinder block. And install the cap screw. Align bores of the piston cooling nozzle sections and install the cap screw that mounts the long nozzle clip to the cylinder block. Torque the cap screws to specification. Install all of the remaining components removed for this procedure. When installing the camshaft, make sure the camshaft is clean and properly lubricated. Place the C-clips in the same position used for removal. Install the pilot in the rear of the camshaft. Support the camshaft with a nylon sling and a hoist until one half of the camshaft is installed in the engine. Position the thrust plate with the wide section toward the center of the engine for correct alignment. Remember to push the camshaft straight in. Rotation can cause the C-clips to become locked in the camshaft bore.